Hey there, folks. Looks like we're about to get started with our modern event over here at Fire and Dice. Thank you guys so much for waiting. Tonight we're going to be featuring Josh Sellers playing Five Color Humans, and guess what? First round of the night, Oscar Carlos, by happenstance, also on Five Color Humans. So we're going to get a mirror match this evening, and if you are watching us on Twitch, which you should be obviously, but if you're watching us and it's more easily accessible, you can actually click the Stream Decker link and take a look at what Josh is playing. I'm not 100% sure Oscar's on a comparable list, but we'll be able to check that out all throughout the night. And for those of you new to the stream, just to fill you in, so Results May Vary is a series hosted by us, Fire and Dice, that every week we feature one particular player for the entirety of the night. We choose them. They pick a deck, obviously, and then we follow their tournament. Whether they do well, whether they don't do so well, that's kind of not the point of Results May Vary. What we're trying to do is we're trying to feature both the player and their deck choice, which is, for a lot of Magic players, maybe not all, but a lot of Magic is a reflection of, of their personality necessarily. Like they chose this strategy because it's kind of what they like to play, it's their style, etc. Not always the case necessarily, but certainly in most instances. And here tonight we've got Five Color Humans, which in our history, I guess, this is the 21st episode of Results May Vary. I don't think we've actually ever featured Five Color Humans, despite the fact that it's been, such a staple of the modern format. Up and down, obviously, but definitely a staple of the modern format for a couple of years now. What Pro Tour was it? It was right before one of the most previous modern Pro Tours, the ones that Luis Salvato won. But yes, we will be featuring Josh Sellers, like I said, Josh Sellers and Oscar Carlos tonight. And looks like we're about to get started. Yep, looks like, yeah, our players are just resolving mulligans. And I'm just going to let our floor people know that we're good to go. All right. So let's see if I can get a better look at these hands. Looks like Josh is on the play. Leads with a strong one, obviously. Champion the Parish, one of the features of the deck, one of its most important one drops, and right up there with Aether Vial. Look at it. And so Oscar also starts fairly strong here. And now that Josh has kind of keyed in on what Oscar is playing, his name on this meddling mage is going to be pretty interesting. He could name a couple different things. Obviously, he could name something like his own Champions of the Parish. He could name, which is not super great necessarily, but he could also name Thalia's Lieutenant. Let's see what he names here. We're going to get confirmation on the Meddling Mage in just a moment here. Josh gets in for 2, as the beatdown deck is wont to do. And so Oscar's going to be able to essentially double his mana every turn, as long as he's drawing mana and spells in some combination therein. He does have a Noble Hierarch. He's got 1 more land in hand, 2 more lands in hand, and then also 3 more actually. I can't tell what that land is quite yet though. But he also, and then he also has this Mantis Rider. Again, I don't know exactly what this Meddling Mage is naming. Can't make it out on stream too well. It looks like Thalia's Lieutenant though. Yeah, it is. Looks like it's Thalia's Lieutenant. And the thing about it is the Meddling Mage only stops Thalia's Lieutenant from being cast, whereas, Oscar does have this Aether Vial, so he's going to be able to sneak her in now and again. And here's Oscar. I think he's replying with his own Meddling Mage. I wonder what he names here. All right, so we're gonna find out in just a moment. I mean, obviously the players are writing down just for their own reference, and we're also gonna get that going here. I believe I do have someone letting me know at the moment. So, all right. So 1 is definitely Thalia, but I don't know if it's Guardian of Thraben or if it's just Thalia straight up, or I'm sorry, or the Lieutenant. And Reflector Mage. Okay, so Oscar's is naming Reflector Mage, and Josh's is naming Thalia. All right, so there is a potential that Josh is going to want to attack here, but it looks like not. He's missing a land drop for it. He's got 3. Is that look like? Looked like it was 3 Mantis Riders there, so that's a little unfortunate if you don't got creatures Or I'm sorry, if you don't have lands, apologies. This Aether Vial takes up to 2, and now Oscar's got a wealth of mana, so he's gonna have 4 mana available here. 2 if he just wants to crack his Horizon Canopy, draw a card. That's pretty reasonable. But then he's got the Thalia, he's got a Mantis Rider which he can cast. So the world is kind of his oyster at the moment. He doesn't have to risk his Meddling Mage. He could just get in with a Mantis Rider if he so chooses. And I think that's what he's opting to do. It is pretty quick too. It is a 5-turn clock just by itself, and I think that's what's going to happen. Yep, it's going to crack in for 4 here, knock Josh down to 16 because of the Noble Hierarch. Oh, it's a little early there, but yeah, we're off to the races now. And then I believe Oscar's going to pass the turn and going to violin a Thalia, which is going to run some pretty good blocking duty. We'll see how that goes overall, though. And, if Josh hits a land, he's going to be able to start deploying his own Mantis Riders, but I wonder how effective that's going to be. I mean, Oscar has a lot of stuff in his hand that he can start deploying. He actually has a Thalia's Lieutenant as well, which he could have flashed in just to make his Mantis Rider permanently large, or permanently larger, I guess. But he's probably waiting for a turn where he can get multiple creatures into play and then go wide. Because the way it's set up right now, Josh is behind on both mana and resources. I mean, he's got tons of cards in his hand, but his ability to kind of deploy them is, very, very limited. Oscar is writing. I can't tell what that says. We're gonna get confirmation there. So another Thalia's Lieutenant, it looks like. The name for Carlos. So we've got a lot of things going on here, and Josh just wants to take a look at what's going on in Oscar's hand. He reveals, at least I saw Thalia's Lieutenant, but I didn't see everything. So here comes the champion of the parish, 3/3 rumbling in. Oscar has some chumps. He can also trade with this Mantis Rider if he so chooses, but I don't think that's going to be the case here. Josh does have a Phantasmal Image in his hand, so he could start copying some things, like namely this Mantis Rider would be reasonable. I think he has all 4 copies, which is kind of crazy. Oscar untaps here. He's going to leave his Vial on 2, it seems like, and it looks like it was a reasonable choice. He draws a Phantasmal Image for the turn. Not bad. His line doesn't seem particularly like I think the most amount of damage here would be violin the. Oh, I guess he. Okay, hold on. So I guess he could. Well, what he could have done, which he did not. What he could have done is he could have actually Phantasmal Imaged in another Mantis Rider, and then he could Aether Vial and crack in for 10 this turn, which would 8 this turn. I'm sorry, which would be pretty crazy. He actually makes a Champion of the Parish, which is an interesting choice. Here comes a Thalia. It's going to go ahead and pump the Champion of the Parish, which is a clone of Champion of the Parish, I should say. And yeah, we've got a pretty one-sided race here on Oscar's side of the table. It looks like Josh did not draw his 3rd land, so he's going to go ahead and scoop it up. For those of you who don't know, actually, Josh is my usual co-caster for Results May Vary, so he's being featured this evening. No spoilers or anything like that, but he is on his way next week. I think in 7 days he'll be leaving for Mythic Championship London. I don't know if he's going to be playing this particular deck at the Mythic Championship, but he is certainly optioning it. It's not a done deal, of course. I mean, again, no spoilers from me. I have zero idea, and I'm sure he doesn't have a whole lot of practice with the deck necessarily at the moment. So. We definitely have to find out from him, but I doubt he'll let us know, obviously. But yeah, so we've got a good old-fashioned humans mirror match. Any kind of mirror match, obviously, it's highly player draw dependent. And then the sideboards matter a lot too. So out of Josh's sideboard, let's just take a look. He's got access to 4 Airlock Champion, 2 Damping Sphere, an Anafenza the Foremost, 3 Deputy of Detention, a Dismember, 1 Comball, 2 Knight of Autumn, and a Sin Collector. So it's hard to say which of these are much better in the mirror necessarily. I do like Anafenza the Foremost as kind of like a way, as first off, it's just a 3-mana 4/4. That is a big gentleman with regards to like humans in general. But yeah, it's going to be able to also make your humans better in combat. There's one card that's been kind of that we've missed its inclusion more and more as the list has gotten refined, which was um, Militia Bugler, so that's no longer in the deck, but which is fine because Anafenza of the Foremost was what I'm trying to say. It does not combo with that card. So almost everything else in the list is going to get buffed by Anafenza of the Foremost. Don't target your Phantasmal images, however, that'd be unfortunate for you. But yeah, I think it's just a big dude, 3 mana 4/4. But otherwise, I don't really know what else you want here. Deputy Detention is reasonable, but not super great. Dismember is probably also fine. I think you just want as much removal as you can kind of muster. Um, it's hard to say also whether you want your Aether Vials. I mean, you probably do, but specifically because of the prevalence of like Reflector Mage, as we saw, Oscar like highly values the kind of effectiveness of Reflector Mage. That's why he named it with his own Meddling Mage. I mean, a lot of wizards in this list actually, or a lot of wizards in this deck, huh? No, Reflector Mage is a wizard. I guess it's only those two. Just kidding. So, yeah, I think that's definitely a worthy inclusion. It looks like Oscar is on a similar sideboard, just at a glance. That's what we're taking a look at here. And he boards out, and I think this is wise. He boards out Thalia and the Freebooters. Freebooter actually a card that's seeing a little bit less play. It used to be like an automatic 4 of because of the way, especially because of the way I should say of the way it interacts with like Meddling Mage. Like you take a look at their hand, you can Meddling Mage, you can take its card and then Meddling Mage to the rest. But that seems to be kind of like less what they're interested in nowadays. And also, they've gone back to, which was something that was a feature at that Pro Tour again that Luis Salvato won. I can't remember which Pro Tour it was, but anyway, it was last year. But that harkens back to that. That was definitely a feature in the main deck, and then they started to get grindier with Militia Bugler, and now they're back to just being very, very aggressive, low to the ground. And then Anafenza of the Foremost is a concession to both Dredge and Arclight Phoenix base decks. So. Definitely just a big card in general, and because it's a replacement effect, not a trigger or anything. There's not a whole lot you can do once it's in play and you don't kill it. It just kind of takes over. Both players looks like they're done sideboarding. Gonna go ahead and get to game. Let me go ahead and set up game 2 over here. My apologies. So yeah, Oscar, if you're just joining us, Oscar Carlos on 5-color humans versus Josh Sellers on 5-color humans. Oscar takes game 1. On the virtue of Josh not drawing his 3rd land. I mean, I think it was a little too late anyways. Like, I mean, he missed his 4th land drop for about 4 turns. Oh, I'm sorry, 3rd land drop for 4 turns. And so he just wasn't able to convert his hand into anything meaningful. Like, he definitely had a lot of options. Mostly just like Mantis Riders getting in the air would have been excellent for him. But again, he just wasn't able to do that. And then the fact that his Meddling Mage was kind of turned off, quote unquote, by Aether Vial, that's also kind of a beating. So, whereas Josh had to play extremely fair. Oscar was just running out his Meddling Mages kind of with impunity. Knowing that there's no like real main deck removal, naming Reflector Mage was definitely great for him. It looks like Josh is on him. Oh, I think he resolved a mulligan because that's 6 cards. Yeah, he's gonna keep this one. I don't see too much besides a Cavern of Souls in the front, maybe a Phantasmal Image, but I didn't see much else. Oh, there's a Champion of the Parish and 2 Thalia's Attempts. Okay, so if he can get off to the races, this is just an easy hand. I mean, like he's 1 land away from turning on the entire hand. The deck has, let me double check before I missay it. He has 19 lands, so the odds of him hitting his 2nd land drop within his 2nd and 3rd draw step should be reasonable. I mean, I don't know. Probably fine. And if he has a Noble in his hand, because I couldn't see the very, very last card. I thought it was gold, but it might not be. Oh, I think it is gold. So I was gonna say if one of his draw steps is a Noble Hierarch, then he kind of has another shot at it necessarily. But we'll see. So Scry's here. That's a great one for Josh. He just needed a 2nd land. So we are definitely off to a pretty strong one here. Thank you guys again for joining us over at Fire and Dice. So I see definitely some new names in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it. Champion of the Parish, once more the lead for Josh Sellers. Oscar Carlos his rebuttal is probably going to be Horizon Canopy into Noble Hierarch. It's gonna allow him to get multiple spells going per turn, which is gonna benefit him in the long run, especially in these kinds of matchups. So this is important. So Josh is noting, I did name humans off of my Cavern of Souls here. However, that could change completely depending on if I draw, for example, Vidalcan, or the Vidalcan Wizard. What is his name? Deputy of Detention. And so I guess that's also another reason you could potentially name humans, wizards off of your Cavern of Souls or Unclaimed Territories because, namely, you have access to a couple decent mages in your or wizards in your main deck. So here comes a Thalia's Lieutenant. It's gonna pump up the team, which is as of right now just this Champion of the Parish. But it is a big. It is hitting in for 17 or hitting in for 3 right now, pushing Carlos down to 16. Sorry, my apologies. Ooh, whoops, went the wrong way. Did it again. All right, my apologies, folks. Okay, there we go. So now Oscar has his own Anafenza. He has a Thalia's Lieutenant, and I believe is that a Reflector Mage? A Reflector Mage wouldn't be awful here because it could do one of 2 things. It could just bounce this this Champion of the Parish, which relieves some pressure off of his life total, or he could get the Thalia's Lieutenant, and little does he know there are actually a decent amount of Thalia's Lieutenants in Josh's hand. I mean, there would suddenly be 2 after this Reflector Mage, but we'll see. So yeah, Reflector Mage is going to bounce Champion of the Parish instead, which is a worthy bounce, as I mentioned. Oscar takes another 1 from his Horizon Canopy. Those are going to add up pretty quickly because he's looking like he's going to need to use it every turn. Another land off the top for Josh is actually okay. Still not going to have access to, I think, playing his Mantis Rider, which is probably fine. So here comes this Phantasmal Image. Oh, maybe that was the name from Josh's side. So here comes another Thalia's Lieutenant hitting in for 3. Is there going to be a chump block? Nope, doesn't look like it. Carlos falls down to 12. So this mirror match seems highly volatile. Like, it looks like you need, I mean, yeah, like having access to all your mana, obviously very important. But the big one here for me, at least again, this is just for me, but the big one here is just that whoever draws their lieutenants seems to really win this matchup. And Josh Sellers, he's got a second one in his hand. He Phantasmal Imaged another, and then more or less, if he is able to resolve this next one, that could be real trouble for Oscar, especially if he goes. If he plays Champion of the Parish first, he pumps both of his lieutenants, and then he plays another lieutenant. I mean, that's just going to be really, really hard for Oscar to beat. He's considering some of his options, one of them being this. There is an Anafenza in his hand. I don't love Anafenza on this particular board. It is a 4/4, so it's going to trade with most of the board, but not all of it. There is an already large Thalia's Lieutenant in play. So here comes the Thalia's Lieutenant of Oscar's own. Not bad. It is going to shore up the defenses a little bit. He does not have a follow-up to this, however. So this Reflector Mage is only going to be a 3/4, and the Thalia's Lieutenant itself is not even going to crack armor. So or any kind of toughness, really. I mean, at 1 especially. So there's another land in Oscar's hand, but it doesn't cast Anafenza, and I think that might have been a mistake. I think there's a possibility he actually casts. He could cast both. I mean, he has access to 5 mana. He definitely could have cast both. So I think that was a slight error on Oscar's part, and we'll see if that ends up proving to be game determining. So Josh here, he's got access to double champion here, which is tempting, but I don't think that's necessary. I think so. Champion here. Let's buff up the team. Sure. Oscar acknowledges that this is probably bad for him. And then here comes another Thalia's Lieutenant, which is going to be very strong. Yep. So here's Thalia's Lieutenant, and that's virtually 3, right? All right, so 2 on this gentleman, another 2 on this gentleman, actually, and then another 2 on this gentleman. So everyone on this team can crack in for a lot of damage. 6, 3, 4, 5. So Oscar can offer a triple block and save one creature. Does not seem bad. Also, if Josh rips, no, because again, I think I'm fairly certain that the undiscovered or the unclaimed territory named Illusion, so that he could cast this Phantasmal Image, but we'll have to see. Seems like Meddling Mage might have been. Oh, I don't know if I like this block. Don't love this block. It is a block, and then we're gonna go and crack and take a look at another card. Hopefully, it's not another land. It is another land. It is a Horizon Canopy, but Not quite enough. All right, so now Oscar's going to get to untap, and he has his own Thales Lieutenant. Will he be able to make it as large as any of the ones on the other side of the table? I think not. Another Noble Hierarch is the draw for Oscar. That's not bad. It's going to let him, again, if he can play multiple creatures this turn, which, oh no, he can't. He only has access to enough mana to do one creature, which is what it is. I like cracking his Horizon Canopy here, to be honest. I think it's a worthy cause. He needs to find something specific. Another Reflector Mage would be fairly good. He's going to go for Anafenza instead, take a damage. And Anafenza here is not a very large threat, or even, yeah, not a very large threat, but it is going to give Oscar a little bit better blocks. Instead of 3-for-1ing, he could go for a 2-for-1. Or actually, double blocks are going to be 1-for-1s here, huh? So we'll see. Maybe Josh actually does rip, another he has a Champion Perish in the hand. If he rips another 1-drop, he does not, but he does draw an Aether Vial, which could be good later. It is, kind of too little at the moment, but I mean, he could potentially do something interesting here. So an attack here would be very good, but the problem is there's just a lot of toughness on Oscar's side of the table. There's a 3-4 in this Reflector Mage, and then there's a 4-4 in the form of Anafenza. However, this is also a 7/7 Thales Lieutenant. That is just one giant gentleman. So we'll see what Oscar, or what Josh, I'm sorry, what Josh wants to do here. He could send in with the 5, and he's going to send in with all 3 of these. Okay, I don't mind this attack. It doesn't signal anything from Josh. Like, if he has Dismember, I think that would have happened already. You can just dismember this Anafenza out of the way and then get in, and it's kind of difficult to punish. And this is a lethal attack if Oscar does nothing, obviously, which means that he'll be doing more. All right. Shout out to the chat. I mean, I wish we had a little bit more of an active chat, but thank you to Yavin X. Thanks for dropping in. This is kind of what we do every week. Josh Sellers is actually my co-caster. We have a really good rapport, and we kind of jab at each other a lot. I provide a little bit more of the, I guess, professional commentary. He's more of a color commentary, but we switch it up. We always do a little bit of whatever feels good. In this particular instance, it's just me tonight because, as you can see, Josh is playing. So. But on most Tuesday nights, you're gonna get the 2 of us. Next week we'll feature just me again, and probably the next 2 weeks. Because if you've just been catching the stream, Mr. Sellers here is actually going to be boarding a plane next week and heading over to England for the Mythic Championship. So obviously, good luck to him. Is this his choice for the MC? I have no idea. He's just trying it out, getting a good look at the deck. Maybe it's something he's expecting to see, and he just wants to get some reps in against it. That seems to be wise. We're getting some movement on the table over here. This is a fine double block, I think. I'm definitely interested in removing the highest amount of toughness. Although the fear here is that if Oscar leaves, I'm sorry, if Josh leaves Oscar with the Thales Lieutenant, it could actually just get pretty large. So we're going to order blockers, and then, yeah, Josh is going to get rid of the highest toughness, and I think that's fine. He's going to get in for 7 here, knock Carlos down to 5, and Carlos is down to just the 1 creature in the form of his own Thales Lieutenant, and Josh's table board state looks really good. Knight of Autumn, the draw for Carlos. I don't know what exactly he's aiming to do with that. He's been sandbagging this island for quite a while, which is not wrong necessarily. I mean, he hasn't had a chance to really play it anyway, so it's coming down now, which means he could triple spell this turn. If he, oh no, he can't. The island's actually kind of awful. I think Oscar is too far behind here. Even if he gained 4 life, it wouldn't be quite enough. So here comes a Noble Hierarch. It's going to grow his Thales Lieutenant. Most likely. Still not to a degree that bothers Josh's board state too much. All right, so now we're going to get a draw step from Josh here. I think maybe there's a potential Oscar just wants to leave up mana, draw another card, potentially get... So, what is this? Reflector Mage. Oh, okay. I think this is going to be pretty much game over. Um, yeah, that's enough, right? 3, 4, 5. Yep, that's 5 damage total. So it looks like, yeah, looks like we've got, we're going to a game 3, folks. All right. So Josh there, able to get his mana to cooperate a little bit. He did have a small kind of hiccup having to use the Unclaimed Territory as a source for illusion instead of human, which is clearly not where you want to be, but ended up working out. He found a Reflector Mage down the stretch and was able to push through lethal. So going off to a game 3, and like I said, I think Oscar there did have the main deck, at least the main deck, and Anafenza still going on. So I think it's reasonable. Like, it's just a 3 mana 4/4. It often will trade for the early Champion of the Parish or Athalia's Lieutenant, something like that. It will often do that trading, and then even if it doesn't, it blocks pretty much everything else. So it's good on defense, and then when it actually does start to turn sideways, it could be very formidable. Now, we're moving back over to Oscar on the draw. I'm sorry, Oscar on the play, as he has not been on the play once this match. So, I mean, again, I'm not 100% sure what he's on. He did bring in Knight of Autumn. He didn't show it, so Josh doesn't know that that's coming. As a 3 mana 4/3, probably reasonable. It's a little bit worse than Anafenza because the 4th point of toughness can matter quite a lot, especially in these combat math. But the 4 life could be reasonable. I mean, that's not insignificant. And then blowing up an Aether Vial is fine, because the big thing is that these decks operate on kind of low mana resources, and the Aether Vial, like in most Aether Vial decks, is going to lend quite a favor to those games I'm sorry, where you don't draw enough mana. So definitely an inclusion with that in mind. But there's 8 1-drops and something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Something in the ballpark of like 18 2-drops. So mana can get hairy, but usually is not that crazy. And then here we see Oscar's going to keep his opener. Opening Island is a little rough, but if he has an Aether Vial, it should be okay, which he does. Josh moving over to his draw step, finds a Phantasmal Image for his for it. Does he have an Aether Vial? No, he has a Noble Hierarch instead. Oh, whoa, excuse me, my apologies. Has a Noble Hierarch instead, which is like a half an Aether Vial to a degree. He's going to be able to skip from 1 to 3 here, or I guess 2 to 3. He'll be on 3 mana here, and this is going to be a Meddling Mage. All right, so let's see what it names. It probably names Thalia's Lieutenant, but it could name Reflector Mage, because that's a reasonable early call. All right, so I don't know what he's writing there. Nope. What is this? What does this say? Oh, there's no need for that, Carlos. Damn it, can't read it. Gonna get confirmation on that. And here's another unclaimed territory for Josh. Not sure what it's naming. This one could definitely name Illusion, and I think that's reasonable. Here comes so it definitely did not name Illusion, because we have a Anafenza going. Carlos over here, I don't know if I love that. I actually would have preferred if he actually just put the champion in play and then cast this Meddling Mage. I think that would have been much more powerful. Meddling Mage is naming Mantis Rider, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, Oscar, knowing that Josh could jump from 2 mana, or from turn 2 to 3 essentially here, afraid of a flyer for which he has no current answer. He does have a Dismember, which could be reasonable. He also has a Thalia's Lieutenant, so there's actually no real good attacks for Josh here. The Thalia will be a 5/5, but these looks like actually Oscar's not even going to let him untap. He's going to pay the 4 life and go to 16. Sure. Josh is probably not happy with that, but you gotta trudge on. Especially with this Thalia's Lieutenant in Oscar's hand, that's gonna prove to be very, very difficult to deal with. Actually, this is still Oscar's main phase, and we're moving to combat now, and these are some big dudes. So we're getting in for, and see, that's what I mean. I think he should have. He's not gonna get in with the champion. When did that happen then? Huh. Anyway, he's gonna get in for 3, pushes Josh to 17. So a worthy Dismember. Josh draws a Cavern of Souls for his turn. He's got some things going on, but not quite a lot. I suppose Deputy is reasonable here. Not great. Reasonable. If Josh wants to, he can double Thalia's lieutenant here. In the form of two two of these phantasmal images. I don't think that's what he's going to do, though. Yep, he does not. He's going to opt instead for a different 3-drop. He's going to Deputy of Detentions this Champion of the Parish. Takes it out of play for the moment, and it's going to allow Josh to, again, flex his mana a little bit better. Any Horizon Canopies off the top can actually be just cycled straight up. And then also, casting multiple spells a turn is going to be very powerful for him. The fact that Deputy of Detention is in play now also means that Josh's Phantasmal Images get a little bit more, how do I say this? A little bit more flexible. So there's a lot of targets on the table currently for those Reflector Mages, or I'm sorry, for those Phantasmal Images, and they could be anything. They could, even though, for example, Oscar has named Mantis Rider with his Meddling Mage. If Oscar plays his own Mantis Rider, Josh can copy it. So for sure, adding a lot of value to those cards. And Josh, here's the thing: is he also needs to manage his life total a little bit, but by what measure, we'll see. Because at the moment, he is taking quite a beating. But that's a reasonable draw. Josh's draw was a Knight of Autumn. Hitting this Aether Vial on 3 actually stymies Oscar a lot, especially because Josh has his own Aether Vial, right? So he's going to be able to deploy some things, and kind of pressure Oscar's resources a little bit. Oscar is on 2 cards in hand at the moment, so hitting a Aether Vial, following up with like a Meddling Mage plus a Phantasmal Image could be the things he needs in particular to get back into this game. I mean, I think Oscar would have attacked with his Thalia's Lieutenant if he had a creature to vial in, but I mean, it's hard to say necessarily. Like an attack here from Josh is for sure, is ill-advised. So Josh working out how he wants to proceed from this point forward. And partly my ability to kind of see what this matchup looks like from a mirror perspective is just because I don't have a lot of experience with this. So if there's anyone in the chat, for example, anyone in the chat wants to lend maybe their expertise, tell me like what's a potential what the potential lines here are. We can kind of talk about that a little bit more as well. It looks like actually, ooh, that's a reasonable one. Getting this Meddling Mage out of the way, and then Josh getting his own Meddling Mage. I wonder what he names. All right, so we're getting a name here very shortly, and he's got to pass the turn over to Oscar, and Oscar has nothing to flash in with his Aether Vial. I think he just has 2 Ancient Ziggurats in hand. Draws another land. Oh, man, Oscar is in major trouble here. Yep, gonna have to pass the turn, and maybe that's another reason why Josh opted not to Knight of Autumn the Aether Vial away, in particular because it's not doing anything. Like it's been a couple turns now. Oscar has not flashed in anything, has not made his Thalia's Lieutenant larger. It's just looking really bad for Oscar at the moment. The early Dismember was good, but that's about it. This Meddling Mage going to get in for 3, getting a little frisky. And we're going to pass the turn back to Oscar. And this is the cool thing, is Josh has access to another Phantasmal Image in his hand. He could He could copy anything he wants on this table, including this Thalia's Lieutenant, which would pump the Meddling Mage and his Noble Hierarch, or he could copy a Deputy of Detention and then hit and continue to pressure Oscar's resources. Because I think here, if Oscar has any creature, it's obviously very susceptible to whatever this human deck's doing. I mean, there is value in a Reflector Mage, for example, but that's pretty much it. Here, Josh is going to find that Meddling Mage for Oscar again. It seems rather clear, at least, that Josh does not have... Oops. Uh-oh. Oh, gosh. So, Mantis Rider is the name, is what I'm guessing. Oh, boy. So there's a lot of back and forth here with the Meddling Mages. I did not actually think that they were going to be this good in the mirror, but they seem reasonable at least. All right, so the vial goes up to 3, which is the magic number, I feel. And here comes a Knight of Autumn. Does it blow up the Aether Vial? It does. And Oscar has no response. Doesn't even fake it. I mean, at this point, there's not much to fake, right? There is also this... there's a Horizon Canopy for Josh Sellers. So I think we're going to start with cracking it, sure. Then see what we want to play. Is that a Kessig Malcontents? It is. There are currently only 2 humans, although if I'm... If I am... Let's see. Kessig Malcontents. Is it all humans or just on your side of the table? Only the ones that you control. All right, and then, yeah, Josh is going to pass it back. Now with 4 power on the other side of the table, we're in a bit of a kind of tenuous... It's a bit tenuous at the moment. Oh, I don't know if I like that. I definitely like cracking this island. The island is your worst land by far. There's a noble hierarch. Okay, so we're gonna, like I mentioned, we're gonna continue to see a bit of value out of this Thalia's Lieutenant. It's gonna continue to get larger and larger as the turns tick by. You know, Oscar has drawn, you know, fairly poorly this game, but he could dig his way out. One giant Thalia's Lieutenant is obviously much better than the majority of this board that Josh is presenting. It's not even all human, which would otherwise turn on the Kessig Malcontents. I think there's a... is there a chance? I'm trying to think. No. Okay, so Oscar here is... I was going to say, Oscar could get in for 4 damage, but he would just straight up lose his Thalia's Lieutenant. There's a lot of blockers on Josh's side of the table, and Josh isn't even that... concerned necessarily with losing this meddling mage on Mantis Rider. If there was a Mantis Rider in his future, he would have seen it already. Or I'm sorry, if there was a Mantis Rider on the side of the table, it would have happened. But both players are very aware that that's like the hardest threat to deal with. It's great on offense, great on defense, and you know it's evasive. So definitely not something that either of them want to tussle with. Here comes a Knight of Autumn. It is a 3/2 with Noble Hierarch's trigger on the stack. Oscar debating a block here. I think he probably has to take it with the Meddling Mage. There's a Dismember in Josh's hand as well, so a double block is not safe for Carlos. Instead, he takes it. I think that's okay. I don't mind a no block there, but I think on this crackback you have to do something. Like you probably just play human and pass. And then Josh, not willing to add to the board, he's kind of winning. Oscar finds a Reflector Mage, which could be very good here. The problem is, what do you name? What do you Reflector Mage? Because if you hit the Phantasmal Image to get your Meddling Mage back, it's not actually going to bounce the Phantasmal Image back to Josh's hand, which is good too. But that means that the follow up in Josh's hand is gonna come down no matter what. Now, if Josh names if Oscar targets this detention, Deputy of Detention, that's going to be pretty reasonable. He gets a human onto the battlefield, which could become a larger threat, and it allows Oscar to kind of, you know, change things up a little bit. So here goes the Phantasmal Image. Let's see what happens here. Looks like we're going to go ahead and dismember here in response to its trigger. In response to it getting a counter. Here comes the Meddling Mage. What does it name? I think Thalia's Lieutenant is a fine name here, but, you know, additional, what are these guys called? Phantasmal Images could be problematic still. Let's see where this heads off to. Honestly, these Deputy of Detentions, there's only been one, but one that's been copied, obviously, have been fairly good for Josh. And then the draw of Dismember, also fairly good. I wonder if he's debating flashing in his Kessig Malcontents for 3 damage. I don't think that's where he wants to be. Looks like oh man, I can't tell. We're going to have to get confirmation. Okay. So we're going to come in with this 3/3 at the moment. It's a reasonable attack. I think Josh just takes. He does have like I mentioned, he has a Malcontents that he could trade damage for. But it seems like that could be of more use to him later down the line. Also, maybe he just takes this because it allows him to Deputy of Detention both of them away, which would definitely put the screws on Oscar a little bit. Let's see. He takes it for sure. Yeah, okay. So Josh falls to 7, which is a precarious life total. It can be very, very difficult to stay afloat from this particular position, but we'll see how it goes. Josh thinking he wants to flash in this Kessig Malcontents. I don't hate it. It is only worth 3 damage, which is going to put Oscar down to 7 as well. Yep. So there's a Malcontents for 3. There's 3 humans, a Noble Hierarch, the Meddling Mage, and then itself. So it counts. It does count itself if I remember correctly. Yep. Not other humans, just humans you control. Josh draws, finds a Noble Hierarch. That's not bad. The Noble Hierarch going to cast itself? Cast a version of it, of course. The deliberation here is fairly significant. Looks like he's going to use an Unclaimed Territory instead. I like that. Obviously, he has this Phantasmal Image in hand. He's going to probably at least leave himself the option of casting it. Oscar likely just looking across the table. He's like, oh, I mean, my opponent was debating whether using a land or a Noble Hierarch for his play here. But it is very significant, namely because I don't think Josh has another way to cast it other than through this Noble Hierarch. So we'll see how this goes. I mean, the thing is, Josh could take both Meddling Mages off the table if he so chose. He could take away the Reflector Mage if he so chose. That leaves Oscar with not very good blocks at all, in fact. But instead, no, he's going to go and get in with this now 4/3 Knight of Autumn. Still no great blocks. Probably just chumps with the Noble Hierarch. Okay, fair enough. There is a chance that Oscar is interested in the same. But now his guys are only getting in for 2 damage apiece, which means the Deputy of Detention is a fine blocker. The last card in Josh's hand is Aether Vial and a Phantasmal Image. The draw off the top for Oscar was an Anafenza the Foremost, a very formidable Magic card at the moment. Oscar going to chip away again, but the problem is, you know, he's going to be able to block, or Josh's going to be able to block with this Deputy Detention. Decides not to. I think that's notable. Oh, okay, no. He was just referencing the power life total. I'm sorry. He was just referencing the life totals. And then, so Josh does block. I was going to say, I mean, just takes it. That's crazy. That's a little aggressive, even for him. We're going to get an Anafenza the Foremost. You cannot tap Island to play Anafenza. I don't think it's going to matter too much, but yeah, just want to keep things correct as possible. Here's a third Noble Hierarch for Josh. That is that's a big attack, and I think it's gonna force some action from Carlos for sure. Oh, we can. Oh, look at this. Gonna copy Kessig Malcontents. That's gonna be for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Puts our Oscar down to 2. Got a little bit of correction there on the mana. Not that it matters, but let's just keep things clean. And then I think this is a lethal attack, right? There's 3 blockers. Oh, no, it's not lethal. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. There's only 4 attackers, and there's 3 blockers. So, oh, no. Do I have do I have everything wrong? I don't think I do. Oh, looks like that's going to be it. Okay, so I must have miscounted. Was that more than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Oh, and then 6. I'm sorry. So yeah, so Oscar did fall to 1. I'm sorry. I miscounted on the Malcontents. It dealt an extra point of damage because I forgot again. Counts itself. So, yeah, looks like that's gonna wrap it up for round 1 over here. Oh, header. That doesn't make sense. I guess it must have. So that's modern round 1. Anyway, this is Chris over at Fire and Dice. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We've got a little over 30 people in the chat at the moment, or watching, streaming, etc. Really appreciate you guys.